one of the things I urge people to do is don't sell to them. When somebody is networking up and they meet somebody really successful, the first thing they try to do is to sell their product or service. So
Yeah.
bad idea.
Awkward. Welcome to the First 7 Seconds, the podcast where presence speaks louder than words. I'm Romy, your host, and today we sit down with the legendary Dr. Ivan Misner, father of modern networking and founder of BNI. He's the heartbeat behind Givers Gain. This isn't just about networking. It's about how you show up before you even say hello. Here's what you'll walk away with. Number 1, 7-second sound bites that stick. Dr. Misner breaks down how to create a memorable intro with what he calls 7-second marketing. One sharp, witty line, that's all it takes to make people lean in. Second, giving with boundaries. Givers Gain isn't just a philosophy, it's a way of life. But here's the truth. Giving without balance burns you out. Learn how to give intentionally, ask courageously, and walk away peacefully. Number 3, presence with a purpose. Whether you're the life of the party or the quiet observer, there's power in how you participate. Sometimes real influence is just being the right energy at the right time. This episode is for anyone who ever wanted to own a room with authenticity and not ego. Let's check it out. I'm beyond excited for today because we're tackling a game-changing question. How do the world's most influential networkers turn generosity into power, presence, and massive success, all without burning out? We all know generosity builds relationships, opens doors, and strengthens trust. But what separates those who give and thrive from those who give and get overlooked? As he famously says, success is the uncommon application of common knowledge. Today, we have the perfect guest to break it all down for us, the father of modern networking, the founder of BNI, and the man behind the Giver's Gain philosophy, Dr. Ivan Misner. Welcome to the First 7 Seconds.
Hey, thank you, Romy. I appreciate it. You've done your homework. That's a quote that I haven't heard in a long time. It comes from a book I wrote called Masters of Success, that success is the uncommon application of common knowledge. Because the truth is, if you ask people what it takes to be successful, most of them will give you similar answers. It's about, hard work and research and, understanding your market and all the very similar kinds of stuff. So why then isn't everybody successful? Well, the reason that everybody's not successful is that they're not willing to apply these concepts in a way that, generally involves hard work. The secret to success without hard work is still a secret. And so they don't apply these concepts. It's the uncommon application, I think, of common knowledge. So I love the title of your show.
Yes.
I don't know if you know this, but I wrote a book called 7-Second Marketing.
Oh, no, you've written a lot of books. I'm trying to catch up still, so I'm trying to read. But that is incredible because I touch on it almost every day. So
I'll tell you what it is. It's not a great book for networking in a context like BNI, the organization I founded, where we're meeting every week. You can actually get abused there. But it's great when you're meeting a large group of people and you want to stand out. You want everyone to remember who you are and what you do. Amazing. And the idea is to use a sound bite that, like success is the uncommon application of knowledge. You want to use a sound bite that gets people's attention. And what first drew me to it almost 40 years ago was a dentist at a Chamber of Commerce function. And there were about 70 people at this function, and everyone had one sentence. They said, if you take a breath, you've gone too long. Okay. And we're going to have a little bell.
Yes.
So one sentence. And
wow.
And so the dentist stood up and he said, I'm a dentist. I believe in the tooth, the whole tooth, and nothing but the tooth, so help me God. And I just thought that was hysterical.
Impression.
And when everyone was done, I could barely remember anyone's presentation and what they did except the dentist.
Yes.
The dentist I remembered. And that then became the book I wrote, where I started, catching all these sound bites from business professionals, and it was a lot of fun to do, and it's very effective if you're meeting a large group of people. It's not a great technique when you're seeing people every single week.
Yes. No, that's so insightful, and I think that's the thing for me, because I'm the brand that I'm actually pushing here is called Charm Logic, where I've been sharing to people in Singapore, Japan, and Taiwan about first impressions and also personal branding, the first impression, which is the 7 seconds that we've been talking about.
Right.
And you can make a drastic impact in a really short amount of time.
Yeah.
But like you said, I think with people that you kind of know already, it can get a little too abused if you overuse it.
Yeah, it does. And I've seen it certainly in BNI groups and networking groups where they're saying it every week. And it's like, really? Seriously? I noticed, in the context of a group that's meeting every week, the time you want to use a soundbite like that would be at a visitor's day. We have a lot of people
Mhm.
who know you.
Correct.
Or at the chamber functions or any place where there's many people that don't know who you are or what you do.
Yeah.
You
There's a
stand
lot.
out.
Exactly. There's a lot like new faces in the group.
Right.
Or like a larger like visitor day, like you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I think that's the thing where I'm incoming visitor host coordinator, so I'm really pushing that side of interacting with the visitor in a fresh view, but the members might think it's a repetitive action, but to the visitor it's always a brand new thing, right? So just got to make sure that you're constantly presenting yourself in the same consistent presence as you want the chapter to be seen, right? So but yeah, like
That's a great role, by the way, visitor host in a chapter. And so not everybody that's watching your show is a member of BNI.
yes.
You've got a broader reach, obviously. So for those of you in BNI and not in BNI, let me tell you why you want to volunteer in any networking organization you belong to be the visitor host, or like in a chamber of commerce, the ambassador,
Yes.
the person who's there at the door greeting people. It's a really valuable role for you, not just the people coming in. And the reason for that is that you're making a connection with every single person who walks in the door. You're saying, hello, welcome to our organization. And one of the things that I recommend, is particularly in like a chamber where there's a lot of different professions, is if there's anyone in particular that you're looking to meet while you're here, please let me know so that I can introduce you. Now, so as the visitor host or ambassador, you become a connector. Who's
Yes.
connecting you to other people in the group. And that's a really powerful role to be in. And I recommend that you do that. And here's the really crazy thing. If you're an introvert,
Yeah.
I recommend you do it,
Yes.
because now you got a reason to do it,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
You have a reason to do it. That's your role. And so you're doing it because you've got that role. Otherwise, you're standing in a corner by yourself. You don't know what to say.
Yes, exactly. For the introverts out there, I'm personally an extrovert. I love giving energy to the environments, but I did marry an introvert, so I totally understand that they want to find value in connection or purpose. So I think, like you mentioned, if there's a purpose, to connect,
Then they could do it.
yeah, then you can do it, and it's not a problem at all. Wonderful. I think we have gone beyond the rapport building side. Would love to talk, just to start the origins of Giver's Gain. Richard Branson, who a lot of people know, love the guy. He mentioned that respect is how to treat everyone, not just those you want to impress. So Dr. Meisner, or Ivan,
Yeah,
I know
please.
Ivan. So BNI is now the world's largest networking organization, but take us back a little bit to the beginning before it was BNI, and what was a defining moment in your life that shaped your belief in Giver's Gain?
Well, that's a multi-layered question, and I'm going to try and get all the layers of it, starting with Branson. I've really had the lucky opportunity, the great opportunity. I think the harder you work, the luckier you get. But I've had the great opportunity to meet Branson many times, and I've spent 5 weeks on Necker Island on 5 different visits to Necker, and I've had a chance to talk to him many times. And you're right, he is all about building relationships and treating people well. As a matter of fact, on one or two of the occasions we left the island and went to, there are a number of little bars around the Virgin Galactic Islands, and and he just shows up. This billionaire shows up, and
Yeah.
it's a dive bar. Okay,
Oh,
it's a dive bar, but he just shows up, and he's very personable. But he's so friendly and so personable.
Yeah.
There's actually a sign up in this bar that says, "Be like Branson. Treat people nicely."
Yes. Yes.
And
Wow.
if that doesn't say a lot about the man, I don't know what does.
Yes.
And so he believes in treating people well, treating people appropriately and nicely. And I think that's a great attitude. And I've watched him, and he behaves that way. He behaved that way almost virtually all the time I saw him.
Wow. So authentic throughout.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
The other part of your question was what kind
Kind of
of
like the origins.
yeah.
Like, and then what the giver's gain philosophy, because we talk about it every single week in the BNI meetings too. And I'm finally being in BNI over 6 years, understanding the power of it actually. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so I started BNI 40 years ago. This is our 40th anniversary. One of the truly amazing things is that we have, as an organization, year over year over year, 40 years of consecutive growth.
Yeah.
No point did we have less members one year than the previous year. We've grown every single year. Not very many companies in the world can say they have 40 years of consecutive growth.
Mhm.
I'd like to tell you I had this vision of an international organization, but 41 years ago, I was a management consultant, and I loved what I did. I enjoyed it.
Mhm.
I had a client that really didn't have their financing in order. They were struggling, and so
Okay.
they cut their consultants, and I lost a pretty big client. And
Yeah.
I realized that I got most of the ways I got business was through referrals. So
Mhm.
I put together a small group of people who I trusted. They trusted me,
Yeah.
and I was willing to refer them. I hoped that they were willing to refer me,
Yeah.
and we started one group. And
Wow.
I didn't have a plan to do two groups or more.
Yeah.
And I had someone, and as you know, in BNI, we have one person per professional classification.
Yeah.
So her category was taken.
Yeah.
This woman who came, her category was taken, and she said, "Would you help me open a second chapter? Because I can't join this one." And Romy, I actually said, No, this isn't what I do. I'm a business consultant. I don't run a network."
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, this is kind of consulting. You know, you're helping me build my business." So but okay. So we opened a second chapter. And at the first meeting of the second chapter, two people came who couldn't join because their classifications were taken. And they both said, "This is incredible.
Yeah.
We could get a ton of business. Would you help us open, two more
Wow.
chapters?"
Incredible.
And I said, "No, this isn't what I do."
Still no.
Yeah, we still no. But I did it. And after that, I just threw myself to the process. And
Yeah.
we ended up opening 20 chapters
Wow.
in the first year without
First
trying.
year.
Yeah.
Wow. Incredible.
And that's when I had my Brody moment. And to me, that's the origin, the full circle of the origin story is the Brody
Yes.
moment. So Brody, you remember Sheriff Brody in the movie Jaws?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so at the end, he's throwing, chum out into the ocean, and for the first time ever, you actually see the shark full off, and it comes out of the water,
Yes. Yes.
scares the living daylights out of the sheriff,
Yeah.
turns to the captain of the boat and says, "You're gonna need a bigger boat."
Yes.
And that was my Brody moment, was in December, because before New Year's every year, I take some time and reflect.
Mhm.
And that year was like, what the heck happened? I didn't plan on having 20 of these groups.
Yeah, yeah.
And I realized I'm gonna need a bigger boat. This is gonna be a much bigger organization than I anticipated. And that's when I started to create a plan to scale the company.
That is incredible. So it's like out of necessity that you actually had to dive
Totally.
into.
Necessity is the mother of invention, and it is
Yes.
the seed of
Mm.
what created BNI.
Wow. And the giver's gain part for you,
Yeah.
like how did you kind of wrap the concept into those beautiful
Yeah.
words?
The
Yeah.
first year we didn't use that phrase. We were talking about, it's important that what goes around comes
Yeah,
around.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You have to help other people in order for them to help you. And I felt like those two words kind of summarized it
Yeah.
perfectly.
Beautifully. Yeah.
And so we decided to use that as our principal core value, giver's gain.
Cool.
I was smart enough to trademark it.
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah.
And it is a trademark phrase
Amazing.
for BNI.
Yes.
And it it really summarizes our philosophy. If you wanna get business, you
Mhm.
gotta be willing to give business to help other people. before you have expectations. See, and that's that's counterintuitive
Yes. Yes.
for most business people.
Mhm.
Most business people, networking is like face-to-face cold calling.
Mm.
Hi, my name is so-and-so, buy my product. And so,
Yeah.
it's about selling as opposed to connecting and building a relationship. And Giver's Gain gives it a whole different spin, one which I think based on results shows that it works pretty well.
Amazingly, amazingly. I've definitely been a beneficiary of that. Um, Another question, in your personal life, has there ever been a time that giving too much led to a personal or professional setback? And how did you navigate that if so?
Yeah, I would say, I was giving too much. It would be certainly making the wrong choices, which in some
Okay.
cases is giving too much. I I went out to lunch once with uh, s- uh, swim with the sharks without getting eaten alive, Harvey McKay,
Okay. Yeah. That's
and he said something to me which I think was really powerful, and that was that he said, I've lost more sleep over the people I've kept than the people I have fired."
oh, wow. Yeah.
And he said, I really lose sleep when I'm about to let someone go. So I don't let them go easily. But I've lost way more sleep over the people I've decided to try and keep when it's gone past that. And so from that perspective, there have been a number of times where I've really kept people too long.
Oh,
And
okay, okay, okay.
uh, in some cases, I brought them in even though I knew that there were issues,
Hmm.
and that their values weren't necessarily completely consistent with mine. And probably the best example of that is somebody who helped us create the early stages of BNI Connect,
Yeah.
which is our online platform.
Yes.
And I knew this guy that I brought in was just full of drama, tons of drama.
Oh,
But I kept putting up with it, putting up with it, putting up with it, making excuses for him because he was very good at what he did.
hmm.
And I thought I can deal with him. But what I didn't think about was all the other people he was working
Yes. Yes.
and how they had to put up with him,
Yep. Yep.
and they didn't want to.
Exactly.
I mean, I didn't want to either, but I mean, I had a
You
I
have the
had a
goal, you have the
goal,
vision. Yeah.
you know but I realized, "Oh, I'm losing good people over this guy."
Yeah.
And so, that's when I really started to believe in Harvey's phrase that you
Yes.
lost more sleep over people that you've kept than people that you've gone, and I've kinda moved more towards, be slow to hire, fast to fire.
Beautiful words too. Yeah, so I guess that's for me the initial challenge with the word give, in
Yeah.
Giver's Gain. How do you assess kind of, how much to give and, and kind of balance that without losing yourself, I guess.
Well, there are, different ways to give. One can give referrals, which is
Yes.
certainly the basis of BNI.
Yep. Yep.
One can, we'll start with the BNI context. One can give by bringing in visitors into the organization. One can give by volunteering to be on the leadership team, to being the visitor host,
Mhm.
being on the membership committee. So there are many ways of giving and contributing. In a business context, you can give advice, give your time. I literally just minutes before this interview started,
Yes.
got a text from somebody who asked if, and I love it. She opened up by saying, "I know you're really busy, but could you just give me 10 minutes? I've got a couple of questions." Now I know her from another organization. I belong to an organization called the Transformational Leadership Council that was started by Jack Canfield, and she's a fellow member.
Nice.
And so, I could give my time by helping her, which is what I intend to do. And by the way, I never say I'm too busy anymore. 'Cause she
Yes.
opened it with, "I know you're so busy." I always tell somebody, or at least I try to always say,
Mhm.
"I have a full life."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're all
Amazing.
busy. I've met retired people
Yes.
who said,
That's the
"Oh, I'm
difference.
so busy these days." Like,
That's
dude,
hilarious.
what are you doing? Golfing? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. All day.
so
That's
I have a
hilarious.
full life.
Wonderful.
Sometimes it's way more full than other times, but I
Yeah.
have a full life. Never too full to give to a friend if I can.
Mhm.
And so there are many ways of giving. You can give advice, you can give support, you can give your ears, you can listen. You can for nonprofit organizations, you can give your time.
Yes.
Certainly for family, my children, the thing that my kids want the most from me, I think, is my time. And so,
Mhm.
there are lots of ways of giving, other than giving referrals.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I guess in that note too, because sometimes when we do give referrals based on the requests of kind of the members themselves, how can it be that they don't feel too transactional sometimes? Because I know sometimes it can get that way. Yeah.
Well, I think the best way that it's not transactional is, to behave in a way that is relational. Meaning that if I had a referral, well, okay, so I just had a request for a referral, 2 days ago, same organization,
Yeah.
but one person posted on the WhatsApp group, "I'm looking for a PR firm. Can anyone recommend a PR firm?" Well, I've been working with my PR firm for somewhere between 15 and 20 years.
Wow.
Long time I've been working with it. Now I could have made it transactional and just put in the WhatsApp group,
Yeah.
"I have a great PR firm. Here's their contact information." That would have been that would have been giving, but it'd be a little bit transactional.
Sure. Sure.
No, no, I said, "Email me."
Okay.
Yeah, it's easier to email me
Oh, yeah, yeah.
because then I can't
I
always
know
take
too
a
many
call.
things.
So, but the email I can respond to pretty quickly.
Okay.
So email me
Yeah.
and I'll make a personal introduction.
Wow. Powerful.
And so, I got 6 people who emailed
Wow.
me,
Yeah.
and I did 6 s I did actually, I did 1 email saying to the PR firm, "You're about to get a bunch
Yeah.
of emails. They're all people I know. They're
Yes.
all part of this organization. Here's a website where you can look them up."
Nice.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's not
Yeah. Yeah.
transactional.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's relational.
Yep.
Then
Yep.
and I sent 6 separate emails. I didn't send 1 email with
Yeah,
all
exactly.
6 plus the PR firm. I sent 6 separate emails
Wow.
introducing the individual to
Yeah.
the PR firm.
Yeah.
And I made a couple of comments about the PR firm and a comment about the individual. If I knew them well, I would say
Yes.
something personal about them. And that becomes relational. That's a
Mhm.
relational process for a referral, not a transactional process.
100%, 100%. So yeah, in Charm Logic, when I teach people, I kind of share the idea of KTP is an idea where it's kind, thoughtful, and polite. So I
Yeah.
think the level of care that you add into the transaction makes it, you know, elevates it to that relational level. And but the thing I think it's time part where the giver's game part when you said time is actually for me, that's what I love giving. It's maybe not sending referrals, but I can support you in what I know really, really well. And I think you painted it out, perfectly and beautifully.
And
Um,
oftentimes the time with a business professional,
yeah,
may include advice, counseling, mentorship.
a mentorship too.
So many times I've seen people in networking organizations like BNI say one of the benefits is that I've got all these people that I can just like bounce an idea off of.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And so you get this BNI is not a mastermind organization, but there's masterminding that happens
exactly.
in any kind of network. And I think that's really powerful.
Oh yeah, it's been invaluable to me actually, just the hive mind and kind of the perspectives that you can get from like this one thing. You'll just have more eyes on it, and when they share with you, you'll be able to prepare more for that idea too, right? So,
Yeah.
oh, this amazing, amazing. So, this the second thing I think I want to talk about within kind of this segment is like, what mistakes do you see people making when they try to apply giver's game but end up being undervalued or overlooked because they've shared too much transactionally potentially?
Well, I think there's a few things. One is it's such an extreme. I find it almost hard to believe that people do this, but they do, where they're giving so much they forget to ask.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've had conversations with people where I said, it's okay
Okay.
to ask. Now, you don't say, "Hi, Romy, my name's Ivan. Can you do this for me?" You don't ask when you meet somebody.
Sure.
But if you've built a relationship, if you've helped them, if you've given them referrals,
Mhm.
then you have built a relationship on a solid foundation
Mm,
where it's time to ask.
mhm.
And so, I see people that they're like, it's an epiphany, but it's giver's gain. Yeah, it is giver's gain, but at some point, it's okay to ask so you can give. And
Exactly.
Well, I've had some people say to me, how do I do that?
Yeah.
Here's what I recommend. And I had someone in particular come to me and say, I've given this one person at least 6 or 7 referrals, and I know that some of them have turned into business, and he hasn't given me any. I'm really upset with him, and I feel like telling him that, "What do you think I should do?" And I said, "Don't tell him that." I said, "Meet with him,
Yeah.
but here's the way to do it. Go back and look at the 6 or 7 referrals you gave him. If you can remember their names, because in BNI, we now have an online system. It used to be a referral slip. Go back, figure out the names of the people that you referred. Start with the one furthest back and say, do a one-to-one and say, hey, it's really good to, spend some private personal time with you. And I wanted to meet to talk to you about a couple of things. One is some of the referrals that I gave you. So I gave you a referral 2 years ago, so-and-so. How did that work out? And listen to the answer. And if it worked out great, fantastic. And then go to the next person. How did that work out? And if they say, well, that didn't work out, it was really not the kind of business that I do. Okay, put that away. That's good information. And then go through all of the names. And first of all, what if you gave 6 or 7 referrals and they were all lousy? Then you shouldn't be upset with this, right? You need to think about what kind of referrals you give. Now, in this person's case, at least half of them made money for the guy. They turned into sales, and one of them was a big sale.
Okay.
And so I said, if they turn out good in your conversation, here's what you say next. I am so glad that those referrals worked out for you. That's why I'm part of this organization. What I'd love to talk about next is how you might be able to reciprocate and give referrals to me. And so we could have a little dialogue about how we can do that. That would be really good. And it was amazing. He called me up and he said, I was blown away by the conversation because not only did the person say, yes, I'm happy to do it, he apologized. He said, you know what? I cannot believe I have not given you any referrals. Well, you're right.
Yeah.
He said, sometimes we just get so busy and we're giving referrals when they fall in our lap, and we're taking referrals when they're given to us, but we're not always really going out and trying to find people referrals. And you've done that for me, and I'm really sorry. And yeah, let's talk about how we can reciprocate. And he said, he called me again about a month later, and he said, I got my first referral from this gentleman. It was a friend-in-law who turned into business.
Wonderful.
I mean, that's a long answer to, you can give and give, but at some point when there's a relationship, it's okay to ask
Yes.
for a referral or for some kind of assistance back.
Yes, exactly. So there's a courage, I guess, that's attached to that too, to step forward. And I guess that's where mentorship comes into, where when you have a dialogue with a mentor, they might be able to spot that for you to share that. Only people that
Yeah,
are
and if
watching.
you do it gently, if you don't do it in a confrontational way, if you get confrontational, people just start putting up walls.
Of course.
But if you do it I mean, that was so easy,
Yes.
the way I suggested it to him, and it almost always works well when you do it that way.
Yeah. When you kindly ask, especially when you've given first already, right? So
Yeah. I mean, and of course, the guilt factor probably play a lot. He apologized, so
yeah, exactly.
that's
You made them apologize too. That's powerful. Yeah. Coming back into, not just in the networking side of things of BNI, but in business, how do you decide when to give, when to charge, but also when to walk away when you kind of spotted issues?
Well, it really depends on what kind of business you're in terms of what to give. I assume you mean in terms of giving for free.
Yeah, yeah.
It really depends on what kind of business you're in. With BNI, with my role as the founder of a company,
Yeah.
I want to give a lot of ideas and content for free.
Yes.
And so if you go to my social media, you go to my blog, you come to interviews like this.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pour into people for free. I don't charge for my blogs. I don't, obviously don't charge on social media.
Yeah.
So I give nuggets of information with the idea that people are going to go, with the idea that it'll build a brand, and the people are going to go, I really need to look into this BNI thing, or I want to pick up one of Ivan's books, or
Mhm.
something like that. So you give enough information to get people interested.
Yes.
But don't give away the farm. You know what I mean? It's okay to charge. We're in business to make money, all of
Yep.
us.
Yep.
You know, I remember I had a somebody say to me, "Do you make money at this BNI thing?" And I'm like, I said, "Well, I have a two-part answer to that. The first part is, yes, I do make money at this.
Yeah.
But the real question is, are you getting value?
Yes.
Or, I mean, you know, I'm not donating my time to
Mhm.
run a global organization. But are you getting value? And what business are you in?" And he said, "I'm in real estate." And I said, "So does anyone ever say to you, I'm going to buy this house, but you're not going to make money on this when I buy this house, are you?" And
Correct.
he said, "Well, you know, of course I make money on it." And I'm like, "Of
Yeah.
course you make money on it.
Yeah.
But are you providing value?" He said, "Yeah, I'm providing value." I said, "That's the key.
Mhm.
You know, are you providing value? And if you're providing value, then charge,"
Yeah.
which was your question. And don't feel bad about charging. Um,
Exactly.
because your time if you're good at what you do, your
Mhm.
time is worth it. I think all too often when we are young or new in business, either young by age or young by experience,
Yes.
we take on clients and customers who walk in and have a credit card or have cash, and it doesn't matter how they behave. We
Exactly.
just, yeah, it's money,
Yeah.
and you take it. And I think at some point you realize that you have to be more selective about your clients,
Mhm.
and that you have to be able to say no
Mm.
to certain clients, particularly people that are toxic or difficult or never happy about anything, and particularly anything that you do. It's better to end the relationship than to try and draw them in. I remember once a person called me up from another country
Yeah.
and said, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, I went to a BNI chapter in such and such a country and it looked really good. And I'm thinking about opening it up in my country. But you need to talk me into why I want to do this. And I said to him,
No, I don't.
I said, no. As a matter of fact, I don't think you should do this.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
advice to you is don't do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And I said, my advice is don't do it, because if you went to a meeting and you didn't see value
Mhm.
and there's nobody else in your country doing it, and you're asking me why, you're not the right person for the role, but I appreciate your interest. And I told him no.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Just cut it there. Yeah, that's that's awesome. Then yeah, then I guess how would you approach it early on when you see it? Or if you've established a connection, you've done some business with them and you know that it's kind of like going on the wayside, you know, kind of like the example you mentioned earlier when we first started talking about being at Connect and stuff. How do you cut it off when you're like, okay, it's time?
Well, look, you know, I'm not one that likes to burn bridges.
Mhm.
So I usually try to do it softly, gently, and that's a learned skill. It really is. When I was 13 years old, Romy, I had this. This is on my desk. This was given to me by my mother when I was 13 years old.
Wow.
It says, "Diplomacy is the art of letting someone else have your way." I'll repeat it.
Nice.
Diplomacy is the art of letting someone else have your way. And my mother gave this to me. I was 13. She said, son, I love you. But you are a bull in a china shop. You just knock stuff over. You have got to learn how to be diplomatic with people. She said, this is about collaboration, not manipulation, but it's about learning how to work with people. So I don't like to burn. I've learned that. And when I'm at my best, I do that pretty well. Um, so you don't have to burn bridges. The way I would do what you're suggesting, that is ending a relationship
Yeah.
with a potential client, is just clearly you're ending it because they're almost always not happy, right?
Yes.
They're complaining about something, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's what you use to end the relationship.
Oh, okay.
You simply say, look, I get it. You're not happy with the services that I'm providing, the program that I have, whatever it is. I get it that you're not happy. And that's not what I want for you. And it's not certainly what I want for me. And
Mhm.
so I would suggest that you find a service that can do what you're looking for, because I'm not that. And so let me finish this project to your satisfaction, and then this is probably the last project that you should do with me.
Beautiful.
And you make it about you more than them. This is you make it. It's not their fault. It's just that they're not happy, and you don't want to have a client that's not happy.
Yes, yes. Amazing, amazing. Cool. That's yeah.
By the way,
Yes.
that works also in a BNI chapter. If you've
Oh
got
yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say.
it works great. If you've got a BNI member who's a problem,
Yeah.
it's okay. You're not happy. It's
Yes.
okay to
Yeah.
step out of the organization. And, maybe sometime when things are different, you can
Yeah.
come on back and resubmit an application, but you don't have to take them.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
is that if you open the door for them
Yes.
to leave, most of the
Wow.
time they'll leave.
Yep.
If you throw them out of the door,
Yeah.
they'll pound on the door to get back in, and they'll stand at the door and complain to everybody who's walking in,
Exactly.
how
Or
horrible
make a scene.
they are. They'll do Yelp reviews or whatever.
Yeah.
If you open the door, it's amazing how many times people will walk out on their own.
Incredible. So yeah, the soft nudge and
Yeah.
showing the way,
Show
basically.
the way
Yeah.
out the door.
Yeah. Oh, I can't imagine if it's not done properly, actually, like you talked about the reviews and stuff too.
Yeah.
Get ugly sometimes. Awesome. So jumping into actually a kind of another segment now is kind of energy versus giving. You've mentored like thousands of professionals. How do you teach people to balance generosity, but also at the same time protecting their energy and time?
Well, that's an interesting question. Let me give you an answer, and you tell me if I've hit
Sure.
if I've answered your question well.
Yep.
Because what you're talking about in my mind is balancing your interests and your life.
Yes.
I'm going to take it a little bit broader,
Yep.
and then we can hone in if you need to. But people often talk about balance to me in life, and how do you lead a life of balance? And I have the answer. I am about to give you the secret to balance.
Secrets, yes. No.
Right? You ready?
Yes.
Forget about balance. You'll never have it. Now, when I say this to a live audience, there's always somebody in the front row that goes, "Oh,
Deflated.
I thought I was going to get something good." All right.
Yeah.
I think you're going to get something good.
Yes.
But here's what I mean by it. And then let's come back to your question to make sure I hit it.
Sure.
When you think of balance, I think life is more of a juggling act than a balancing act, right? When you think about balance, you think about scales.
Yes.
And that your personal life has to be in balance with your professional life, which has to be in balance with your spirituality and your health, and it's got to all be in balance. And life's it's
Not
a
bad.
juggling act. So I don't like to look at balance on issues or on life, and instead I prefer to think of it in the sense of harmony versus balance. Even the graphic for harmony, the yin and the yang,
Yeah, exactly.
are out of balance if you separate them.
Yep.
So when you separate them, they're out of balance. And so I wrote a book called Who's in Your Room, which is all about the people that you surround yourself with and the things that you choose to do, which was kind of along the line of your question. The things that you choose to do, but also the people that you surround yourself with. And I talk about how to create a life of harmony versus balance. And I tell you, you feel a lot better about yourself, and you feel a lot better about how you're showing up in the world when you look at your activities from a sense of harmony versus balance. My life was way out of balance. In the majority of my career, I did 24 to 26 trips a year on flights. And
Great.
and so I was way out of balance. And I was married 31 years before my wife passed away, and we had young children. And so I was gone a lot,
Yeah.
uh, and so that was difficult. However,
Mhm.
when I was home, I was home.
Yeah. Yeah. Present.
And that's one of the first rules of harmony is be here now. Wherever you are, be there. So don't be at work thinking about the fact that you didn't spend time with the family last night. Don't be home thinking about the project that you've got at the office. Wherever you are, be fully present to that. And that's one of the methods of creating a life of harmony. And so in your question is maybe a little more specific, but my answer is to try and find a way to create harmony in those kinds of issues, because balance just isn't possible, especially for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like, marrying an accountant that has a 9 to 5 basically. And also having a young one. I have a almost 4-year-old right now. Wonderful. I love parenthood so much.
Yeah, wait till she turns into a teenager.
Yeah, I know.
Aliens come down and take your children, and they replace
Oh,
them.
they're gone?
They replace them with someone that looks like your kid. It sounds like your kid,
Oh,
but
but it's not your kid.
it's not your kid. It is. When my
Yeah.
my when my when my eldest daughter was 17, this is not a joke. She actually said to me, "Dad, you're not only not with it, you're not even near it."
Whoa.
I'm like, "Okay, honey, I
Not real.
understand. You still have to be home at 10 o'clock. I don't care."
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No matter what.
And so, now that same child, but the good news is aliens bring your kids back.
I'll go back. Okay. They return.
They bring them back usually in their 20s, early
Yeah.
20s.
Okay, okay.
And so my daughter was definitely brought back. She and I are so close. I just love this child to death. But
Amazing.
just be prepared for the teenage years, because it's generally not pretty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I think a little bit for closer to the end, I'll ask about like culturally too, like the differences that you've experienced in like so culture.
Culturally.
Um,
Well, you got to look at it from a number of perspectives. With BNI being in 75 countries, we have many different cultures. But there's a culture. I'm going to take this in a direction you probably never heard anyone talk about.
sure, that'd be awesome.
There's a culture that no one thinks about. Virtually no one thinks about, and that's the culture of entrepreneurism.
Ooh,
And
yeah,
the culture of entrepreneurism, um, in many ways, transcends a lot of the cultural differences around the world. Let me give you a really specific example. When we opened in Japan, um, in many of the Asian countries, particularly in Japan, you've been to Japan?
yeah, yeah,
So they have, and I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, the Maishi ritual
yeah,
with
yeah.
cards,
Yep,
where you hold the card, you pass it, you bow,
yep,
you take a
yep.
card, you look at it, comment, never ever write on one of the.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
That's all cultural stuff.
Yes.
And so when we opened up in Japan, and one of the BNI members said, "Well, what are you going to do? Because in North America, North America, you can just toss a card. It
Exactly.
doesn't matter. People don't care. It's not a big deal." And I said, "That's true. That's true. But we're still handing out cards.
Yes.
They're not done. We're not handing out rocks
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or paperweights
Yeah.
in North America, and they're handing out cards in Japan. No, we're both handing out cards.
Yeah.
And what we tend to do when we look at other cultures is we see our differences
Hmm.
more than our similarities.
Mm-hmm.
And programs that work around the world, like BNI, it's an overlay,
Hmm.
an entrepreneurial overlay that is overlaid on top of the existing cultural context.
Okay.
And so it's people in North America doing business with people in North America. It's people in Asia doing business with people in Asia. We've just provide an entrepreneurial system that's an overlay on top of the cultural context. So if you're talking about me traveling to another country, I better be aware of a number of cultural differences, so I don't look like an idiot there or come across rude there. You got to know those things. But I think all too often we look at different cultures and we see all of our differences, but we don't see all of the incredible similarities that we have.
Yes, yes. And when you kind of package it into that culture of entrepreneurialism, I think I never actually thought of it too deeply. Like I'm aware of,
It's like
but yeah.
the BNI program is the same in every country.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I remember the first time I ever saw a BNI meeting in another language. Canada was our first country outside of the U.S.,
Okay.
but I didn't see a chapter in French-speaking Canada
Okay.
at that point. The first chapter I saw was in Swedish.
Oh, wow.
in Sweden. Swedish is a very interesting language,
Yeah.
not like French, where you can pick up a word or two.
Oh,
North
yeah.
Americans, particularly Canadians, know a little bit of French.
Nordic.
It's not like Spanish, where I grew up in Southern California. I know like
Okay.
a little bit
Yeah,
of Spanish, right?
for sure.
Swedish sounds like
Yeah.
right? It's this beautiful sing-song sort of
Yeah.
voice. So I'm watching this entire meeting in Swedish, BNI meeting, and someone looks over at me and says, "You have no idea what he's talking about, do you?" And I said, "No, no, he's introducing the referral part of the meeting. This is where you give referrals, and if you don't have a referral, you'll
Like,
give a testimonial." And the member said, "Wow, you speak Swedish?" I said, "No, I wrote the agenda. That's what happens now." And he said, "That's exactly what he's talking about." And so what I loved about that was that you could take this program
mm-hmm.
and integrate it within the culture.
Yes.
And, like in Australia, they don't say good morning, everyone. It's good day, mates.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
what? That's fine. It's a little bit of a cultural context, but it's the same basic meeting in 75 countries.
That's so incredible. Yeah. And it actually reminds me of when I'm helping my mom. Like I speak fluent Mandarin and I do teach in Mandarin too. And I've visited a lot of chapters actually in Taiwan. When I'm helping her with her iPhone,
Yeah,
it's the platform is exactly the same, but the language is different. And basically you can navigate because you already know the structure
right.
and it's a direct translation to it. And so,
What a great example. I may borrow that as
oh,
an
sure. 100%. Yeah.
what a great example that is. That's a perfect example.
No, thank you. Thank you. So yes, I think that was I'd love to dive even deeper into it. Just want to come back to one quick tip if you can give is we know that we make all these connections with leads and referrals. What's an underrated follow-up strategy that builds trust and keeps you on top of mind when you do connect?
Absolutely one-to-ones. Doing one-to-ones with people will make a world of.
Okay. Okay.
As a matter of fact, we have hard data on this. We've got a podcast on it, and any one of your audience can go to. It's a podcast it's up online,
Yeah.
and it's bnipodcast.com. And if you go to episode number 570, more one-to-ones equal more referrals. We had a member who was working on a college degree and did a study in Europe in her region on the number of members that did one-to-ones and if it had any impact on the amount of business that they generated. And if you take a look at that podcast, episode number 570, there's actually a graph from her study in there, and it shows that the difference between people who did one-to-one meeting with a fellow member one-to-one once a month compared to twice a month, 3 times a month, or
Yeah.
4 times a month.
That's a good-
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically once a month versus once a week,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The results just blew my mind.
Yeah.
The people who do one-to-one a week compared to those who do one a month gave almost exactly 100% more referrals.
100%.
Yeah, it was almost double.
Crazy.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
It was the people who did one a month did 0.88 referrals.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a week or a month. I think that's a month.
Yeah.
And the people that did 4 a month did 1.59. Oh, so
Wow.
uh,
Practically double.
now that's what they gave.
Hmm.
Here's the incredible part.
Yeah.
They received almost exactly double.
Wow.
So if you want to
Cool.
get more referrals, what you want to do is do one-to-ones because it's the one-to-ones that will deepen the relationship. See, if your network is a mile wide but only an inch deep, it'll never be very powerful.
Hmm.
Network has to be both wide and in places deep, meaning that you have to have a really deep connection with some people, your referral partners. You want them to know you as well as possible so that they feel a connection and want to give you business. And so there is a direct and dramatic linear correlation between one-to-ones and generating referrals in a networking environment.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, I love doing one-to-ones. I think I'm one of the leaders in the chapter. So it's good. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah. But it's like getting to know who's in the room
Yeah.
and actually their whys and their weekly shifts in terms of their asks too,
Yeah.
because the asks can change really really quickly, and for some businesses, like some are quite consistent, but some of them will have different asks, and to have a pulse on your members, what they need, that's like
Yeah.
another giver's gain channel to me, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So in this next kind of segment, I want to talk about like high level networkers that you've met. So and you've of course met with a lot of powerful and wonderful networkers in your kind of career. But what do the best networkers do differently than most people that most don't realize?
Um, it's really about building relationships, making a connection where they want you to reach back out to them, or you want them to reach back out to you. And certainly, when you're networking up, when you're networking above your weight class, so to
Yes.
speak, you're,
Yes.
you're networking with people who you feel are more successful than you.
Yes.
One of the things, and I have a whole presentation that I do on this networking up. One of the things I urge people to do is don't sell to them.
Mm.
When you meet somebody and you're networking up, the worst thing you can do is sell to them. And the reason for that is everybody and their mother does that already.
Yes.
When somebody is networking up and they meet somebody really successful, the first thing they try to do is to sell their product or service. So
Yeah.
bad idea.
Awkward.
It is. And people just get tired of it, right? Really successful people get tired of it. And they know that you just want them they just are trying to get your list, or they want you to buy their product or service.
Yep.
And so instead, what you want to do is look for opportunities to help them.
Mm.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that I had a chance to meet Richard Branson on a number of occasions.
Yes.
And when I first met him back in 2007, it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. But when I met him again 2 or 3 years later on Necker Island, I wanted to do a video with him to put on my blog,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
But I didn't wanna be one of those guys to go up and, "Hey, Richard, would you do a video with me, please? I have a blog." And so I didn't wanna be one of those guys. And so I thought, "Well, what's he working on right now?"
Yeah.
And so before I went to Necker, I Googled him and took a look at the things that he was really interested in at the moment. And at that moment, it was the B team. The B
Oh,
team was the business team.
okay.
It was how business can make a difference in the world,
Mm.
and how business can, step in and act quickly, quicker than government, quicker than NGOs, nonprofits. They can do it quickly. And I thought that's a great concept. I
Yeah.
love it. It fits the BNI Foundation really, really well. So I went to Necker Island
Yeah.
and sat down, and he's there with everybody who's on the island, just about every day. And we were sitting on the beach, and it was a beautiful day. And I said, "Hey, Richard, tell me about the B team.
Yeah.
I looked it up. I've been reading about the B team." He lit up, Romy. He
Yeah.
just, oh, I love this concept. And he just lit up. He was on fire. He was excited. And
Yeah.
he talked about it in a very excited way. And I said to him, "How can I help you?" I love that phrase. My favorite phrase in networking.
Yes.
How can I help you?
Yeah.
How can I help you get the word out on that? And
Wonderful.
he said, "Well, I don't know, you run this world's largest networking organization. Can is there any way you could get it out to the membership?" I said, "Yeah. Would you like to do a video? I'd be happy to put it out on the video." And he said,
Nice.
"Yeah, that would be
Wonderful.
great. I would love to do that."
Yeah.
And I said,
Amazing.
"Dean, let's do it this week." And I actually, I'm like every day going, "Should we do it now? Should we do it now?" But I waited 2 or 3 days, and about 3 days later, he said, "Hey, are we gonna do that video?"
Wow.
And I'm like, "Absolutely, let's do
Yes.
it, let's do it in about an hour. I'll meet you over such and such." And we met in an hour, and I did the video,
Wow.
and I posted it,
Yes.
and I did what I promised, which was to get the word out. And this was a
Yeah.
good 15 years ago, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
But I got it out there. And if you look at my blog at ivanmeisner.com, you're going to find at least 3 videos
With
I've
him.
done with Richard. Because every time I go back, I
Yes.
ask him about something. Last time it was Virgin Voyages,
Yeah. I
his
like it.
cruise line. And
Oh,
and I said, well, let's how can I help you promote that somehow? And he's like, yeah, great, let's do a video like we've done. I'm like, all right, let's do that. So
wow.
it's a win-win.
Yes.
I'm helping him in a small way, but I'm helping
Mm,
him,
yeah.
and it's good for me.
Yes.
So look for ways to help someone as opposed to try to sell to someone.
Mm,
That makes sense. That works at all levels,
100%.
but particularly if you're networking out.
Trying to network up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And to that note too, like I really appreciate you allowing me to also spread the word of BNI like with you, the founder, because it was funny because it was a virtual assistant team that I utilized who's also in BNI in Philippines that I connected through from YP Lai, who I've also connected through BNI, and I was trying to start the podcast in North America because I've been doing a lot of it in back in Asia, and the virtual assistants team, I just told them to spread the message out and see who's willing to actually contribute. And it was about like a week, I think you messaged back to me and say, sure, I'd love to. And then I was like, oh, Ivan Meisner. At first, when I saw the email, I thought it was like a program that I was going to be sold to, but I was like, oh, it's actually Ivan. So, and then no, it's very it felt really warm, when someone is you believe that you is above your weight class, like you said, and you respect a lot, reaches out to you to actually,
It's very kind of you. Thank you. Yeah, but this is what I love to do. This is, this is my passion. This is my flame in the organization.
yes, yes. Kind of like the B team. It's such a cool name too.
It is a cool name.
Yeah. Um, cool. So, jumping into kind of that cultural side of things, like because I've been teaching in the Eastern cultures, so Singapore, Taiwan, Japan, versus people that are here in North America. In Asia, it's a lot about the collective mindset, always talking about the others or the group first before them. Here, it's kind of flipped around where it's like spotlight more on yourself, the individual side. How do you how have you navigated it when you've been doing businesses and sharing with people kind of in these two different spaces? Like you kind of mentioned it earlier, but just want to kind of deeper take into it.
Well, I have found that, the concept of giver's gain works both in Asia and it works in the Americas, and it works very well. It's maybe a little explained maybe a little bit differently depending on the cultural context.
Yes.
If I were in Asia, it would be this is very natural.
Yeah.
If I were in Latin America, I would say this is very natural. Everything's the tribe, the family, the
Yes, yes.
community,
Yeah.
and so they get that. In the U.S., it's all about the best way for you as an individual to be successful is to help others,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a little bit more of an explanation,
Yes.
but the fact that we have 40 years of experience and we've generated a lot of referrals, that gets those who are rugged individualists to pay attention because it works. I mean, last year BNI passed 16 million referrals worldwide.
Yes. It's crazy.
We generated 25 billion with a B, 25 billion US dollars worth of thank you for closed business. Now you know what that is, but
Yep.
for those listening, that's the amount of business generated for our members
Mm-hmm.
through those 16 million referrals. And so this is the kind of dialogue I would have, like in a North American context. I would say, just to put that into a context, based on United Nations estimates of GDP, gross domestic product, there are actually 100 countries in the world, 100 countries in the world with a lower GDP than what BNI generated for its members last year alone.
Yes.
Programs like ours are a way of creating referrals for life. And if
Yes.
referrals are the way you're going to build your business, then you want to come visit. So it's a little bit different, but it's
Mm.
the same concept. It's about giver's gain, but
Mm.
you're going at it from what excites them more than what excites you necessarily.
Yeah, I guess that's also kind of how you shared about like networking up to like always start with that spark
Yeah.
of what sparks the other person to
Right.
start with, right? And when they pick it up really quickly because it's like they're already passionate about it and they'll listen, they'll want to help you out naturally because you're like you've already led with you're giving them That's a kind of like giver's gain, where you're giving them, letting them know that you've studied what they're doing, what they're excited about.
Right.
So that is so cool. Yeah. Yeah. So another thing, getting to more of a personal side of things. You've met thousands of people. What would it take to kind of get into this inner circle of Ivan, or even the individual? Like when you're trying to network up to people that are, of certain status, and you want to become someone important in their circle.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the best. I don't travel as much, so I'm not to as many regions. But the best way to really connect with me directly is to go to a BNI convention or a BNI conference,
Yeah.
because I just throw myself into the mosh pit. Um,
Yeah.
and
I've heard.
there's usually like vendors. I go around and make sure to get to every vendor booth,
Sure.
say hi, get a photograph. But after that, I just stand in a corner and let people come on up and take pictures
Nice.
and um and that's probably the best way to connect with me. I after all of these 40 years of doing this, I when I'm home, I'm home. I'm a little bit of a recluse when I'm home,
Yeah.
but when I'm out, I want to meet members. I want to shake members' hands. I want to have a chat with them. Uh,
That's incredible.
yeah, come to an event and meet me. And don't be sometimes people, particularly some cultures in particular, very afraid. They don't want to interrupt. Don't like that. And it's like, no, 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 come
Yeah.
on up, take a photo. Happy to do photos and happy to hear your story briefly.
And I 100% believe you're the type that actually tries to kind of corral them in, so that, because there are shy people, like, even me being in Asia, when I've been teaching on virtual, and when I head back to Taiwan, even meeting in person, they get really shy too. But then I actively try to like reach out, because I find, especially with introverted people, when they kind of want it, but they don't want to disrupt you, like you say.
Right.
So it's like, it becomes a little awkward.
I find
Yeah.
that giving them permission from the stage
Mm. Okay.
helps.
Okay.
So, when you're on stage and you're talking, and I usually do it either at the beginning of my presentation or at the end, near the end. I'll say, I'm happy to take photographs with people, and don't be shy. I want to meet you. So please come on up, say hello. I'm happy to do a photograph. And sometimes there'll be this long, long line of people. And
Oops.
and the longest was a 3.5 hour photo shoot,
Wow.
where I had to take a 10-minute break in between. Or it was almost 4 hours actually, and I had to take a quick break in between. But it was practically 4 hours of photographs. And somebody said, "Oh, this must be really hard work." And I'm like, "Man, I grew up in a very low middle class family. I could be digging ditches. This is way easier
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
than certainly what my dad did to make a living. And so I could be digging ditches. I'm happy to take photographs."
Exactly. 4 hours. That's awesome. Hopefully I'll get a chance to photograph you one of these days too.
Absolutely. You come on
Awesome.
up and say hi. We'll
Oh,
get a photo.
would love to, would love to. So yes, I have this kind of final question, and then like a quick fire, 7 questions. So this last question, before the quick fire, is, what's the best way to audit your network that you have, and to cut out the energy draining connections in general?
Well, the one-to-ones
Yeah.
are a great way to really assess the people. And when you assess it, I'll give you a simple concept that's in my book, Who's in Your Room. Look at people as to whether they're engines or anchors in your life.
Ooh,
Are they an engine driving you forward to be the best version of yourself? Are they there to help you and to bring you along? Or are they an anchor bringing you down
mm-hmm.
or holding you back? The worst
Yeah.
are the anchors with an engine attached.
No, the way.
You know, they're the
That's
worst.
crazy.
And so it's a simple assessment.
Yes, yes,
Is this person an engine or are they an anchor? And if you don't know, you really want to do a one-to-one and
yes.
kind of figure out where they are, and surround yourself with engines. Surround
Mhm.
yourself with the people that you want in your room. If you haven't had a chance, pick up. I'm as for a self-help book, it's my favorite self-help book that I've written, called "Who's in Your Room," and it's about creating the life of your dreams.
Amazing.
So did that answer your question?
Fantastic. And last 7 quick fire questions.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. So it's nothing like, what's your favorite color? It's so, but if you're interested, but what's the biggest networking mistake people make in the first 7 seconds?
They try to sell.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, they use networking as a face-to-face cold calling opportunity, and they go right into sales mode. And the more business cards they can pass out, the more they think they're networking. I call them the card dealers. They're just passing the cards.
Yeah, the casinos. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
the casino.
and that doesn't do it. I did a book. This is supposed to be rapid fire. I'm sorry, but
No problem, no problem. No, this is good.
I did a book called Networking Like a Pro with Brian Hilliard. I love Brian, great guy.
Awesome.
And he has this dog. I think that, if I recall right, the dog's name is Brandy.
Yeah.
Beautiful dog.
Yeah.
It's a blonde hair, long hair, beautiful dog. Everybody wants to pet this dog. It's very, very friendly. He said, look, if the card thing worked, if it really worked, what I would do is I'd put a little cloth saddle over Brandy. And on one side, I would say, place your card here.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I would say, please feel free to take one of my cards. And I would just send Brandy in.
Stop.
And after an hour, Brandy'd come back out and I'd have all
This is
cards.
yeah,
And that would be great. The problem is, that's not what networking is. It's not about passing our cards and grabbing cards. It's about making connections with people. All right.
exactly.
What's your second one?
So next, Norms. So what's one question that instantly makes someone more memorable?
Tell me what you're doing that you're most excited about right now.
That's good. That's wonderful.
Tell me what you're passionate about. Tell me what you're really interested in doing. Another question is, what do you like to talk about that nobody ever asks you about?
Ah, that's a good one. Yes.
All right, and then just let them
Stay open
talk.
up.
A good networker has 2 ears and 1 mouth and should use them both proportionally. A good networker is like an interviewer. You're asking me questions, and you're just letting me elaborate
Yes.
on my answers, and that's what a good networker is.
Exactly. So what's a subtle but powerful way to build credibility fast?
Okay, my hesitation is I don't think you can do it really fast.
Yeah, yeah,
It takes time.
sure.
But the best way to build credibility quicker than
Usual.
normal
Yeah,
would be to give first,
yeah.
to ask people when you're doing those one-to-ones or meeting people, how can I help you? What can I do to help you be successful? And then contribute in some way to that individual. And it's all about credibility. I train the VCP process: visibility, credibility, profitability.
Mhm.
You can't really generate a referral relationship until you establish credibility.
Mhm.
And establishing credibility doesn't take time. Passing a business card back and forth doesn't make you credible. Giving you my resume doesn't make me credible.
Mhm.
Right. And so credibility takes time and it takes behavior. The older I get, the less I believe in words.
Yeah. Yes.
And words are important. Okay. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Words are important. But the older I get, the less I believe in words and the more I believe in behaviors.
Ah,
Behaviors are more powerful than words, and words have power.
yes. Wonderful. If you could give only one piece of advice on being charming, what would it be?
I think it's from a perspective of networking. I think it's more important to be interested than interesting.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if you're interested, then people really feel a connection with you.
Yes. What's an uncommon follow-up strategy that builds trust?
So I train on what I call the 24/7/30 follow-up system. 24/7/30. Within 24 hours after you meet somebody, reach out to them, either do a handwritten note, which nobody does anymore, or at least an email, and say, hey, it was really nice meeting you at the event yesterday. I enjoyed talking to you about whatever. And so I recommend that you just write a note or two on the back of their cards, or if you're in Asia and you shouldn't be writing on cards, take a notepad with you and write in your notepad about the person, so that when you reach out to them and you say, hey, I really enjoyed our conversation on X.
Yes.
And I hope our paths cross again, and don't sell to them. Okay. 24/7/30. Within 7 days, connect with them on social media. So at some point you want to have a conversation with them about, what social media platform do you participate in the most? For me, I'm on all of them. You can see, even TikTok, I'm on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. But Instagram and everything, but Facebook, I think I've got 354,000 followers on Facebook. So that's where I've got most of the stuff that I love to put up.
Okay.
So find out where they like. It could be LinkedIn, it could be Facebook, it could be Nanos, and then go to that social media platform and connect with them
Wonderful.
and say, "Hey, we met a week ago. It was really
Mhm.
nice to meet you." Comment on their posts.
Yes.
"Hey, I really enjoyed this. I totally agree with this." And then within 30 days, oh, and don't sell to them on social media.
Either.
And then within 30 days, reach out to them and say, "Hey, I've been following your social media. I dropped a note to you after we met. I've been following you on social media. I'd love to get together with you and learn more about what you do.
Mhm.
And if you're willing, I'd be happy to tell you a little bit about what I do, but I'd love to really learn more about what you, and then do a one-to-one.
Yes.
That's the best follow-up system. I call it the 24/7/30 follow-up system. It's in my book, Networking Like a Pro.
Wonderful. What's the most unexpected lesson about connection you've learned?
Um, don't believe in words, believe in behaviors. So, I've met people that they talked a good tune. Um, and you meet them and you think, wow, this person's amazing. And so I have learned the hard way to really get to know more about that person before I let them in my room.
Mm.
Going back to the who's in your room concept,
Yeah.
they're out at the doorstep outside
Yeah.
until I can watch their behaviors or until I can talk to other people who have let them into their room and they can tell me about them. So don't get too close to people too fast. Get to know who they are before you let them into your room.
Yes, yes. And last, in one sentence, how do you create a lasting first impression that turns into long-term success?
How do you turn what into
Lasting first impression. Yeah, create a lasting first impression to create long-term success.
Well, it goes back really to one of the answers I gave, which is to ask them what they're interested in, and then actually two of the answers, what they're interested in, and how can you help them?
Yeah.
What can I love that idea. It's a fantastic idea. What can I do to help? How can I assist with that? And so that's going to get a much better impression than here's my card. This is what I do. If
Mhm.
you know anybody that could use my services, let me know. You're going to make a much better impression on. I really enjoy. Now, if you don't believe it, if you don't like what
Yeah,
they
yeah,
do, if you don't like what they don't say that.
exactly.
But if you really want to make a connection with somebody, listen to them, ask questions, and ask them how you can help, and then follow through. Follow
Yes,
through
yes.
and do whatever it is that you promise, and people will appreciate it. I reach out to Richard every now and then,
Yeah, yeah.
and when I reach out to him, I always include a photograph in my email with him,
Wonderful.
where just, "Hey, remember me?
Yeah,
I've been on Necker 3 times,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
you and I play a lot of" sometimes I'll send a photo of him and I playing chess because he loves to
Oh,
play chess.
wow. Nice.
And what's really funny is because we've talked about video, sometimes I'll send him a photo of the video,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
screenshot or something, and he'll say, "Of course I remember you." And
Yeah,
who knows if he really remembers me.
yeah.
But as soon as I talk about what we discussed and how I helped or tried to help him, boom, he absolutely at that point, I know he remembered who I was. So you wanna make an impression, find a way to help people, not just to sell to people.
Amazing. The final, real final question.
Okay, real final question.
Yes, if you could distill all of the networking wisdom into one rule for giving, growing, and gaining, what would it be?
N Networking is more about farming than it is about hunting.
Mhm.
That it's about, cultivating relationships with other people. It's not a get rich quick scheme. If you wanna network so that you can make your mortgage this month, it's not it's not that. If you want to, network so that someday you can buy the house of your dreams, it's about that, but I'll mix metaphors slightly, and networking is more of a marathon than it is a sprint.
Mm.
It takes time, but if you do it and you do it right, there's just no better way to build your business than to build your business with relationships, with, professional relationships with other people that you know, like, and trust.
Wonderful. To that, Thank you so much, Ivan, again, for the kindness of time that you've given me personally and to the people that are listening. Would love to continue a series in the future potentially, and even come down to Austin. I'd love to actually do a session of photography with you, or even speak in person. But
Yeah, I hope that can happen. And for your listeners, anyone interested, bni.com is our website. IvanMeisner.com is my blog.
okay,
And my latest book, maybe next time
yeah,
we can talk about this. It's called
yeah,
Infinite Legacy,
wonderful,
and it's about creating a legacy in your life.
incredible. Thank you so much again for everything. Yes, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll connect soon.
Thanks. Really great
Awesome.
talking to you, Romy.